So now it's time to introduce Fani Bahar and Roberta Verzi. So I'll just ask if you could each introduce yourself and a little bit of your background for our audience. So I'll start with Roberta, please.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. So I'm Roberta. I'm a senior UX designer and team leader at Booking.com. I'm Italian, as you can guess from my accent, but I live in Amsterdam. I have this hybrid role where I'm both an individual contributor and a manager of multifunctional teams. And just a bit of introduction of the structure of Booking.com so you can understand better when I speak what I'm referring to. So basically, like in Booking.com, we have several departments. Each department is then divided into tracks, and these tracks are divided into small teams. So we work in small cross-functional teams, as Jovi was mentioning, like with designers, product manager, engineering, copywriters, and so on. And so each department has its own objectives that are aligned with the company objectives, and then each team has also like its own objectives and areas which are aligned to the department one. So just a small introduction.
Great, and I'm sure we'll dig a bit deeper into that in a few seconds. We'll hand over now to Fani. Could you give a quick introduction to yourself and what work you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Fani Bahar. I am a senior product manager at VMware Tanzu Labs. I think I've been working as product manager for almost 6 years now. So before that, I was an engineer. My background is in computer science. And then I think a little bit background about VMware Tanzu Labs. I'm not working as product manager for VMware product, but I'm actually working for a VMware client product. So basically, I'm pretty much like a product consultant. So let's say I'm working with an automotive industry company or finance industry company, and then we are working together to build the client product. It can be a greenfield product, so it's totally new product for them, or probably it can be also modernizing their current product. So that's basically the responsibility that I have as a senior product manager at VMware Tanzu Labs.
Excellent. No, that's really interesting. So we're going to have a bit of a difference in this conversation between the more frequent and new products or different products versus kind of building an existing product in Booking. And Roberta, you kind of touched on your organizational structure there. You said you've got departments and tracks and teams. Can you give just an example of what are those different levels, just so people can get into their heads kind of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so just to give you an example where I am, for instance, so we have this accommodation department, which is like the umbrella for all the different type of accommodations, for instance. And inside, I'm in the home department, which is like specifically for home properties, like apartments, villas, bed and breakfast, and these kind of things. And then there is another department for hotels, for instance. And then there are others inside.
Okay, great. So yeah, and then apart from accommodation, what would be the other departments, just so people can get an idea?
Yeah, depending on the product. So for instance, I don't know, there is flights, attractions, so all these kind of different products that we have. Also, another thing to specify, maybe like this, in these departments, the different teams can be working on the customer-facing products. So what you see actually on the website, while others work on the partner-facing products. So like what the host and the owners of the hotels can actually see.
Great. Yeah, no, that's great seeing the kind of marketplace where you have to look at both sides of the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to you actually in a minute, because I want to dive deeper into that. But I'm interested with Fani, with the work that you do, because you're looking at different clients all the time. So where do you start with creating your product strategy before we get into adapting it?
Yeah, sure. So at VMware Tanzu Lab, we have specific processes when we start the project or the engagement with the client. So we have what we call double diamond. So we have discovery processes, and we also have framing processes. So we start building the product strategy is from the beginning. So from early on, from the discovery processes, start like, let's say, even the first day working with the client, we really want to understand actually what is their problem that they are trying to solve. And then from there, we are also trying to understand what is actually their product vision. And then when I'm saying that engage with the client, it means not only with their executive, but it's with the real product development team. So in the product vision workshop, we will trying to understand from each team member what is actually the vision of the product. And then from having this vision, so we also start like defining what is the strategy, what is the good strategy to execute or to achieve our vision. So from the discovery, we already discussed about like our product vision and our product strategy, but still this is all based on our assumption. And then this is all assumption from the team member. And then from there, we trying to interview or do some kind of like research. It can be user research, it can be like market research, it can be also competitor research. And then the goal for doing all this research is basically trying to validate our assumption, validate our initial product strategy. And then the moment that we get more knowledge of it, so that's also the moment we kind of like shift to the framing processes. And then in the framing processes is basically when we also trying to review if our vision it's still aligned, if like actually our problem, like the problem that we are thinking is actually the real problem, and then the solution that we are thinking is actually the solution that will solve the problem. And then because of that, so we also trying to update our product strategy. So definitely it's from early on building the product, we define it. And then along the time, we always need to check if the strategy is still relevant or is still valid. Most likely, I will always try to make sure that our product strategy is good enough, like long enough for the next couple of months, because I think it would be a red flag if we are changing the strategy quite often. It means that probably we didn't do our homework really well. We didn't do our research really well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example there at the end. So I guess the challenge, because as you described in that double diamond process, it's a lot of a discovery. It's a lot of, at both phases, you've got that kind of the broad thinking before you narrow in on a solution. How do you marry that kind of broad thinking with trying to get a stable kind of strategy? How do you marry those two kind of seemingly different approaches?
Mm-hmm. So the broad strategy here, the broad processes here, it's really, we just trying to use some kind of like a lean canvas workshop. So we use this framework a lot because I think by using this framework, it's really mapped out what our assumption of our problem solution and the users very quickly. And then with this one, we can also get an alignment with the team very quickly. And then from this lean canvas, it would be really easy for us to also define, okay, what actually the experiment that we need to do as soon as possible. So then we can validate our current product strategy. The reason why we want to do this experiment, as I mentioned before, is really to validate if that strategy that we mentioned, it's really good strategy, or like it's will solve the problem that we think it's a problem. So for example, I was working with the big instrument company, and they are selling an instrument, and then they are trying to build some kind of like an e-commerce application. And then at that time, one of the big problem that they could see is like a lot of people are looking for a specific instrument, but they couldn't find it in from their website. And then they really believe that one of the biggest problem might be because of the supply chain. One of the other problem can be because like the user not able to give like a wish list or something like that for the instrument. So at that time, they really focus on having a better supply chain. They really focus on how to reduce the cost. So that's actually the part they start their assumption. And then because of that, the strategy that they have, they really stick with the strategy. Okay, we need to reduce the cost of our supply chain. What does that mean, reduce the cost of the supply chain? Because they really believe that they probably order an instrument that there are not a lot of demand. Instead, the instrument that has a lot of demand, they didn't order it good enough. So then a lot of people like looking for that specific instrument, and then it's actually sold out. So we start with that assumption. And then when we start with that assumption, we did a lot of like market research, user validation, or even go into their internal supply chain processes, like what actually can be improved. After that, we are working again with the team to map out all our findings based on the earlier discussion, until finally we try to discuss, okay, we have all this fact, and then let's prioritize what turns out what is the biggest problem here. And then turns out the biggest problem at that time, it was not about the supply chain. It was more about like, turns out there are a lot of user might actually asking for alternative instrument. So they might actually have a specific instrument, but they want to have an alternative instrument. So in the framing state, that's the moment that, okay, might be we need to change the strategy, because before we thought like our strategies really need to focus in the supply chains area. Instead, basically what we can probably, the good thing that we can do is trying to make sure that the user get a lot of different instrument alternative shown to them. So that's actually, it's more on process of having our assumption validated, and then how we can prioritize the solution to try on. Yeah.
Great. No, I love the example, because it was more your assumptions invalidated, which is as good as validating assumptions, because you're figuring it out. So that was great. Thanks for that kind of insight into how you work. So Roberta, you've got a different challenge in that you have an already existing product. So how do you go about, I guess, creating that product strategy, and how much involvement, or is that just kind of handed to you because you're part of the bigger Booking.com product?
Yeah, no, usually, it's a bit different, of course, because the product exists. The way we work, so as I mentioned before, we know we are in this home department, let's say. So we know our scope eventually is to make it easier for users to find and book these kind of properties. And then we know each team has more or less an area or a topic they touch upon. So usually the way we work is we're quite free in deciding what we can work on and what we can ship according to the business and the user needs. But of course, we need to map them out with the overall department strategy. So usually what we do is we define, okay, what are the user needs that we want to tackle this semester and this year, because we work this way. And then based on that, we make these objectives. Usually they are from 3 to 5, let's say, which can be different. And then based on that, we develop the strategy. So usually like it's the product manager drive the team, but can be that the UXers have like a lot of to say about the strategy, so they contribute a lot. It's a team effort, let's say. In this sense.
Great. So you said you start from the customer needs. I've kind of 2 questions on that. So you said before that you have your departments and their mission and their goals come down to you, kind of cascade down to your teams. So are they coming down, their goals, are they customer needs, or are they more business needs?
Usually both. So we tend to like find a compromise between the two. And UXers especially, like they fight a lot for like having the user at the center, what we do. It happens also that we might push back on something because we don't see the value for the user. So we make actually the team change what they should focus on.
Great. And that's great. Like I've heard people talking about pushing back against the business objectives, but it's definitely kind of hard because a lot of companies, they say, okay, we need to grow X amount of market share, or we need to earn X amount of profit. But it's great if you are able to fight for the voice of the customer.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is that everybody like is very open like to for discussion. So we have also a lot to say in that direction. And like what I explained in the talk, it's an example of something that came out as a, for instance, in this case, as a business opportunity. And then we, like me especially, I challenge a lot back on this product. And then eventually like we shape it in a way that was more user focused.
Great. So just kind of carrying on from that kind of theme then, getting buy-in. So if you've done all of this research, how do you convince people these are the 3 to 5 customer problems that we should focus on? These are the most important ones. And I guess there's probably multiple people you need to convince. There'd be the people in your team, there'd be your stakeholders, there's the customers themselves to adopt new products. So how do you go about, where do you start with trying to get that buy-in, and then how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, usually like everything comes back to data, like, and be prepared when you want to get the buy-in. So let's say I start defining like a few, like the problem statement, the business opportunity, and the final outcome. And to do so, I always ask myself, okay, why, what, how, and the outcome. So like in this sense, I can say, for instance, why we want to do that. So what are the data we're basing this upon? And then what do we think will be the solution for this? What are some high level approach that we can take to solve this problem? And then who, meaning defining the target. So what are the actual users that we want to target? So can be a certain type of customers, or can be like the host, the owner of the properties. And then what will be the final outcome, meaning how do we define then if this strategy is successful? So yeah, and to do so, the first thing is to gather data, which can be, as Fari mentioned, like competitor analysis, marketing research, or like internal research. So we deep dive into previous user research, into previous A/B testing that we run. So we find like some proof that we actually need to work on this.
Great. So you've dug in, you found some data, there's a problem with one of your customers. How do you convince then others that, so yes, the data would back it up, but I'm sure there's data for 10 competing different things. So what are the steps that you do to convince people that this is the right product strategy to follow?
Yeah, usually like it comes all down to the also to the outcome. So how this is aligned with the department objectives. So if you try to find a way to speak the business language and demonstrate, okay, this is really something which can bring us success aligned with our objectives, we can be more bookings, for instance, or less customer service tickets, like something like this, then it's easier to convince at least your team and your immediate stakeholders. Then there is another part, which is the external stakeholders.
So the external, so actually that you kind of touched on that you have a team structure in booking. Are you able to work purely autonomously, or do you need to work with other teams as well?
Yeah, it depends on what we want to do. So for instance, if the, let's say, for instance, for the product I mentioned in the talk, which is a quality rating system for homes, that was mainly autonomous because it was our product. We were doing all of that. But on the other hand, like there was all these, we were touching points that other teams were owning. So we needed to coordinate with them and ask for, explain to them what we were doing, why we want to do so, and try to don't find any conflicts, because as we run A/B testings, like we need to be mindful of when we run what and not interact with each other. So there is another layer of convincing external stakeholders, which is more or less the same. You need to be very prepared and explain the reasons why you want to do something.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here. In a perfect world, you have this very data-driven conversation and everything works out perfectly. In the real world, it tends to be a bit more messy and complicated. So is there any kind of, do you have any examples of how you've actually dealt with this? Like, so maybe two teams had a bit of a conflict or something and how you went about solving that?
Yeah, for instance, in this case, like if we need to revise the product strategy or the roadmap because like it goes into conflict with other teams, then we try to do so. So we try to find this compromise and say, okay, maybe like, I don't know, in this certain period, I'm running this A/B testing, then you can run yours. If we know we're blocked on some things, so for instance, if we're blocked, let's say on the customer side of this product, then in the meanwhile, we might decide, okay, we go on the the partner side. So it's all a balance, let's say. It's always like this, and there is no, because eventually there is no one telling us you need to do that. So like the final decision is this, but we need to, we are actually free to figure out ourselves. Then when it's very, very bad, then we cannot really align, then we escalate, of course, and someone decide.
But most of the time between the teams, you can agree on your product strategies? And
yeah, most of the time, yeah. I mean, everybody knows each team has its own things to deliver. So we try to find this compromise between us. It's not super perfect because you lose a lot of time anyway. But
no, it sounds really interesting because that's one of the challenges that I hear a lot is that as teams try to create autonomous, companies try to create autonomous teams, getting the boundaries it's never perfect. There's always going to be overlaps.
Yeah.
So it's good that I like the way they let the team solve the problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, ideally, it should be kind of aligned on a high level first. And then once we encounter like this level, there should be already clarity on, okay, this team is working on this, so they might overlap. Yeah, sometimes it happens, sometimes no.
Great. Actually, I'd like to jump over to Fani again. So just talking about kind of getting buy-in. So you talked about your approach for getting the product strategy, and this is where I see it being a difficult challenge because you're a consultant external to the company. So how do you go about trying to get buy-in with the companies that your research and your strategy is the right way to go?
Yeah, so yeah, that's actually true. First of all, I mean, definitely I'm working as a consultant, but the other part of my responsibility is also enabling the product manager from the client side. So then they can be also a product manager, because like most of my client is like a probably corporate company, and then they might not know about like what is a product manager. So that's one other part of my responsibility. So definitely from the beginning, like before we start the project with the client, we have to align, we define our OKR together. So when I say we here, it's definitely the sponsor of the project. So from the client side, who actually signed the check to hire us, and also with the team. So the OKR is really the anchor for the whole project. And we definitely need to review the OKR in weekly basis, just trying to make sure that everything is right on track, or if it's not, we can also define what is the action item. So definitely we define the OKR early on, but sometimes in the middle of the project, things can happen, things can change. Might be there are specific decision that we have, a specific strategy or specific decision that we have to pivot. And this is the time that we definitely need to also manage the stakeholder expectation. So usually what I would do is really discussing our alternative together with the team. Okay, this is the fact, like this is our current problem, and then this is actually a lot of different alternative how we can approach it, and then what is the pro and cons of every different solution. And then as a team, we probably can agree like which different solution that we want to take based on our current knowledge, and then based on what we already investigate. So this is also the moment that we need to kind of understand how to pitch with the specific stakeholder. So the reason is because this negotiation part, or like the moment that I want to present something to the stakeholder, it's become my product, and then the stakeholder here is become my user. So I have to understand actually how I can pitch that would actually easy for them to understand it, because might be they have their own specific agenda, and then if I don't understand their specific agenda, it would be hard for me to also convince the person. So first of all, trying to customize my pitch according to the person. The second thing is usually I'm trying to make some kind of like decision tree. Hey, this is the problem that we have. This is all different alternative that we can do. And then this is actually the pro and the cons. So I'm trying to really visualize it. So then make the conversation with the stakeholder much easy. The third thing is definitely, I think I have to come to realization of like, I need to make sure that I'm not married to my idea, because there is a certain point that the stakeholder will just still like, even though I'm showing the whole data, the whole support material, they might actually say no. And then I should not take this personally. So I should prepare myself for not take things personally. So I need to expect this happen. I think the fourth thing is also, I always make sure that I understand what is the outcomes that I want to achieve from having this discussion with the stakeholder. Is it a small decision, or is it a big decision? So small decision might be we can do it, and then if we made a mistake, might be it's easy for us to roll back, or it's easy for us to actually recover from it. Or is it a really big decision, and then we need to really think what is the potential risk if we go through this specific decision. So might be changing the business model of a specific product. So we need to realize it to the stakeholder that this is a small decision or a big decision. I think the fifth is really trying to also come to an agreement that, are we looking for a commitment, or are we looking for an agreement? Because at the same time, I'm working with the client, so I don't have a full authority with their organization. So that's also something that we need to. I as a consultant, I have to agree. Like, let's say the stakeholder can say like, yeah, I appreciate your work, but I think I know my company really well. This is how we do it. And then I said, okay, I disagree with you, but I will commit to do it. So that's just, I think, the different as a product consultant, I would say. Yeah.
The Jeff Bezos disagree but commit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I really like the way you were kind of saying your stakeholders are a customer as well. So you have to do the whole customer like research and understanding, put yourself in their shoes. It's a really good approach. Well, one thing I want to kind of ask about is, for my consulting days, it was very difficult to have an adaptable product strategy, because from the very get-go, the agreement would be, you're coming in, you're going to build this, these are your deadlines, this is your time and your cost. So how do you, because you mentioned that a lot of your clients are very traditional and they don't understand product management, or they don't have those roles. So how do you get past that kind of fixed time and cost and just build the scope as it was defined, to move them on the journey to adapting as you learn?
Yeah, so I think I always challenge them in terms of like, I understand this is your current organization. I think like in my talk, I discuss about the outcome-based roadmap. And then I always like, before I kind of like trying to sell out like this outcome-based roadmap, I always ask them like how actually the roadmap looks like, how they define the roadmap, and then what is the pain point with the current roadmap. Might be they can say like, yeah, actually I see roadmap as a timeline, and then most likely we never actually hit the target, we never actually finish one roadmap in quarterly. And then I ask them like, okay, so is there anything that you have changed the past, let's say the past 5 years, like is there anything that you changed with your framework? If you haven't actually changed it, are you willing to make like a little bit change? Because like I mean, that's craziness, right? Like you are doing the same thing and expect different results. So what I ask to them is just their openness to try a different thing, and then we are transparent during the project working with us. We can see whether this is working out or not. I think definitely that's really true. A lot of like organization, they have really waterfall, probably they have a top-down approach, and definitely as a consultant, I also realized that this is a problem that I cannot fix in 6 weeks project, but what I can do is trying to make sure that enable the team that working with me, like pairing with me, to understand what is lean agile, how to work different way, and then might be they can be an advocate for their own organization. So that's another way to look at. Yeah.
Great. I'll just ask the same kind of question to Roberta, particularly for our audience, where a lot of people might be coming from that position where the strategy is defined and they're just told to follow it. Do you have any advice that you would give to try shift to a more experimental approach, a more adaptive product strategy?
Yeah, in general, I would say try to demonstrate the value of what you're proposing. So if you explain to them, okay, maybe like this, as Fari mentioned, like how can you expect like something different if you always try like this approach? So try to say, okay, we can try out this new approach. Like we can see what are the, so we can see fast how we can fail fast. We say we fail fast, we iterate fast. So in this way, like you don't waste a lot of time on working on something that might be unsuccessful, but you actually can shift the product strategy very quickly, or like shift the feature you are building like very quickly. So my advice would be try to build a presentation that explain to them, okay, what will be actually the benefit of this new approach compared to what they are used to do.
Great. And this one, we've got 1 minute left. It's probably a bit of a difficult one. I've found when I've tried that, people take offense because they go, what do you mean it's not working? I'm very good at my job. I've done the research. I've done the due diligence. Who are you to say this is what I'm doing is wrong? Yeah, no, I mean, it's a matter of words. So I wouldn't say like this is not working, but I will make it sound in a way like it can be improved, because everything like can be improved, and yeah, like make it sound more in this way. But of course, yeah, you might encounter resistance, like that is something that happens. Great. Well, I think we're actually just out of time now. So I'd like to thank Roberta and Fani for sharing your insights. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody at home did as well. And I'll pass it back to Jovi. Thank you.